I am Djeli. In the presentation you are about to experience, there is a story that may be disturbing. The story of Grandma Vi. I believe it is an important part of the healing process to feel. I also believe it is important to know the uncomfortable truths of our past in order to create a healthy today and a healthier tomorrow. As a story weaver and practitioner of Djalia, the content of the stories I share is my responsibility, which is to say that although this presentation was recorded at Brooks Memorial Library in Brattleboro, Vermont, the library staff and volunteers are not responsible for its content. Art, at the fullness of its power, has the ability to challenge us and to comfort us. Thank you for your support of the arts.
Welcome everyone to this celebration and an evening with our hometown favorite, Djeli, who is going to perform tonight the ancient art of, the pronunciation is?
Djalia.
Djalia. If you don't know Djeli is a longtime Brattleboro resident, but he also is a seasoned international performer with delighted audience throughout the world and locally. He's also a member of the National Association of Black Storytellers and the Screen Actors Guild. We really thank you for coming out tonight, because an evening with Djeli is a true delight. And I know that there is a weather forecast, so we thank you for venturing out on a night that we don't know what it's going to be like at the end of the night outside, but we know inside our hearts will be warmed. Thank you.
Thank you. To begin with, I'm going to rattle. The rattle is a way of calling in my storytelling guides, my ancestors, and the spirits who will bring story to me this evening. Now, I have this list of ideas of where I think I want to go, and sometimes they drive from the back seat. So, just going to take a moment. So I'm here this evening to share with you the ancient art of Djalia. And have you heard of Djalia before? No, not many people have. And I actually did a Google search for Djalia, and I was told that it's fictitious, that there isn't really such a thing. It was created by the movie industry. They're wrong. They're wrong. So I will share with you a little bit of that Djalia tonight. Now, Djalia, if I can do a little history lesson, it is an African art. And it is more than an art. It's an African science. It is a mixture of things. The practitioners of Djalia, which the reason why you may not have heard of them is because the practitioners of Djalia were erased. And we're at a time right now where history is being erased again. So it's really important that I show up here tonight. Now, how was it erased? Well, when the French colonized parts of Africa, they introduced the griot. It's a French word for storyteller. Now, the practitioners of Djalia, the Djeli, or the Djali, they did more than just tell stories. They kept oral traditions, the histories of families, of communities, of regions. They were mediators in dispute. The Djeli, of which I'm one, the Djeli were praise singers. In some cases, they were ministers. They also offered medicines. And sometimes those medicines weren't in the form of medicinal plants, but they were in the form of words, incantations. And that's where I come. I did not come from a line of Djeli. The Djeli is somewhere in my DNA. Yet it wasn't necessarily my father or my mother or my grandfather. And something jump-started in me that let me know that I am the Djeli. And I'll share this tidbit of a story. It's not really a story, because if I do that, I'll just be all night telling the same story. So this tidbit of a story is that during the pandemic, a lot of things were happening. We sequestered. And for a storyteller, that's a bad time. Because at the time of sequester, we were masking, we were holding our breath. And you cannot tell story without breath. And so I would jump on Zoom calls, and my brain likes to move around a lot. So on a Zoom call, when this is happening, how do I focus? And what I did was I had my journal, and I would start to write words that would float out of that call into my vision space. I'd write them down, and at the end of the Zoom call, I would read back the words that came to me. And when I did, the groom would go, wow, that's amazing. So I had summarized it all, not intentionally, just it was a way for me to focus. And also because these golden words were floating through the air. And someone said, oh, he's our griot. And another person chimed in really quickly and said, no, he's a Djeli. I'd never heard the word before. I'd never heard of a Djeli before. But something in me leapt. It was not like my heart jumped. It was like something just above my gut and below my heart jumped up, hit its head on my heart, and said, we're home. And I knew there was something there. And as I went on subsequent calls, I'd do the same thing, and again it would be said, oh, the Djeli's here. The Djeli's here. And so I started doing some research on who I was. And I found nothing. And so I sent other people, do some research, find out what a Djeli is. And other people would come back and they'd give me these things. And they would say, a Djeli seems to be everything that you are. So I will say, leading up to that, when I was trying to focus on these Zoom calls, leading up to that, I was a performer. I had been on the stage. I had studied musical theater way back when I studied musical theater. I was a circus clown, an acrobat, a stuntman, a writer, a performer, a director. You name it, I did it. But how do they all come together? And when I looked at that list, when I finally found on my search of what a Djeli was, it was as if somebody had put my resume up there. And so I accepted, I am Djeli. Now, at first I was a Djeli. And then, so I'm gonna fast forward a few years. I did something that I had intended to do since I was 17 years old. Now, it took me 4 decades to implement that thing, which I went into the forest for 3 days to do a vision quest. Now, at 17, I thought, this is how I'm going to become a man. I'm going to go in and I'm going to get guidance and I'm going to be told that this is who you are. So I went in at 54 years old and the forest spoke. The forest spoke very clearly. And one of the things that it said to me was, the you that walked in here will not be the you that walks out. Now, that's a little foreboding. What's going to happen to me? I didn't know. And over the time, the forest spoke to me in so many different ways. It brought to me power animals. At one point, I was laying in my tent, and I could feel this scratching, scratching on the side of my tent. And I first got a little nervous because it's a time when the bears could be out. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is the bear coming to me. And so I spoke to that bear. I said, "Oh, Nate the bear, I hear you. What do you have for me?" And old Nate the bear said, And I waited, because I knew this was the end. I might not be walked out, I might be carried out. And Nate the bear scratched again, and I don't know. My tent is a hammock tent. It floats in the air. There's nothing that could be brushing up against it, but here was Nate the bear, but he was being gentle. He hadn't scratched through. And then I realized, oh, this is what happens in a vision quest. I'd been fasting it's a 3-day fast, but I had been fasting for 6 days prior. Oh, and Nate the bear came and showed himself. And now sometimes when I put my spirit makeup on, my spirit paint, I put 3 claws for Nate the bear right here. Because it's not about what happened, it's about what's happening. So those 3 claws were not about a scar, a scratch, but just a reminder that Nate the bear is always there for me. Now, of course, at the end of the 3 days in the forest, as I prepared to leave, there's a lot that happened in those 3 days. There's a lot that happened, but I won't get into that because we're just talking about the Djeli here. At the end of those 3 days, as I was getting ready to leave, and I didn't know when the time would be to leave, but the forest said, "You know when the time is," as forests tend to do. The forest said, "You know when the time is. When the time is right, you'll pack up and you'll go." And so when the time is right. And as I packed up, the forest said, now, hold on to this. The you that came in here is not the you that will walk out. You know who you are. And when you emerge from this forest, let the world know who you are. And as I walked out of that forest, I knew that I am Djeli. And that's how I show up here today. Now, as I mentioned, the Djeli comes from Africa. And the Djeli, where in Africa, a lot of things get ascribed to West Africa, because that was the port of exit for the slave trade. Yet the Djeli is all over Africa. And the way the tribes moved, and clans moved, and villages moved, things were handed off. Stories were handed off, and the Djeli was handed off along the way. So the Djeli is all over Africa. And when the Djeli would arrive, since they were the keepers of culture, they were the bearers of tradition, they carried stories of families, entire families. And in the family, the Djeli knows the lineage from the beginning up until they speak to you. And when the Djeli would come into a town, if they were visiting Djeli, a song would be sung. And the song goes like this. Djalia da, alaleka Djalia da, alaleka manza da, alaleka Djalia da. And that means, hey, the Djeli is here. And then it's hail the Djeli. Now, but the Djeli was invited in, usually, by someone, and that's the ruler of the land. And that's what manza means. It means ruler. And sometimes it's translated as master. It's just ruler or leader. And then, so they would say, oh, thank you for inviting the Djeli in. Alaleka manza da. And then, once again, hey, hail the Djeli. Now, I know you came to hear story, but the Djeli is here. I think it's time we sung. So I will sing the first line, Hey Djalia da, and you'll repeat it. And then I'll sing the second line, and you'll repeat it. It doesn't matter if you get it right, just get the melody good. All right? Here we go. Hey Djalia da,
Hey, Djalia da,
Alaleka Djalia da,
Alaleka Djalia da,
Alaleka manza da,
Alaleka manzo da,
Alaleka Djalia da.
Alaleka Djalia da.
All right. I think that's adequate. Thank you very much. Because otherwise we'd sing it all night. It feels so good. All right. So the Djeli is here. And, I usually like to start at the beginning. But today I'm not going to start at the beginning. I'm going to start a little later than that. And I'm going to go back to the beginning because it'll make sense. And this is so rare, I don't normally sit down because, whew, I like to move. But I'm just making sure that you are prepared for me before that happens, all right? So story. I take it you've heard some stories before. Okay, I do a lot of storytelling at schools, and I ask, by show of hands, how many of you are storytellers? Everybody raise your hand. Everybody raise your hand. Everybody raise your hand. Okay, good. There we go, that's it. And because it demystifies it. I wasn't a storyteller for so long because I never got the stamp of approval from the storytellers that says I could be a storyteller. And then as I started telling more and more stories, and people said, oh, you're a storyteller. I said, oh, no, I'm not a storyteller because nobody gave me the stamp of approval because I'm not a storyteller. So I'm just going to, right now, each of you has the stamp of approval as a storyteller. Got that? Okay, great, thank you. And the reason, because we tell stories all the time. The story is just a thing with a beginning, middle, and an end, right? And the epic story just takes that end and makes that the beginning of the next. And I share this with the elementary schoolers. I say, how did you get here today? How did you get here today?
Me?
Yes.
The micro mover.
There you go. There's the story. Did you hear that? I was like, now my imagination's like, ooh, was it the brown mover? Which one was it? Ooh, how? And which way did you come? How? Like, that's the story. We open that space for anything to be possible. Okay. And many of us are storytellers, but we don't think of it that way. Now, a story. Where does story come? Have you heard of Anansi? You've heard of Anansi? Some of you have. Anansi. It's Anansi the spider. Okay. Anansi the spider. So, but Anansi's Anansi's a little tricky sometimes because Anansi can also show up in human form. Anansi the spider, crafty. A lot of people say Anansi's a trickster. I think Anansi's crafty because the trickster is not always trying to get over, although Anansi does try to get over. Now, Anansi comes from Africa as well. And actually, when Anansi came over the ocean and landed here, Anansi transformed a little bit, still the same stories, and became Aunt Nancy or Aunt Nancy. Huh. Right? It's the derivative, and part of that is changing language, change the name slightly. So Anansi. And we can thank Anansi for all story. Because, I'll get into it. See, now a story belonged to Nyame the sky god, or the sky ruler. Okay, just for some people, when they hear God, they go, oh no. So the sky ruler, Nyame, had all story and all wisdom. We down here had nothing. We just went about our days. There was no story, we just did. And Anansi went up to Nyame. I'm not going to tell you the whole story, I'm just going to tell you snippets of it, okay, because you're going to do some research. Anansi went up to Nyame and said, Nyame, I would like that wisdom and story stuff. And Nyame, knowing the value of story and wisdom, said, oh, okay, you want that? More shrewd, right? I'm willing to part with it, but I'll part with it if you could defeat the three terribles and bring them to me. No, the three terribles. See, I'm not even going to mention their names. See, that's a different variation of the story because a lot of times people will say their names, but their names, ooh, they were so terrible. I won't mention their names because I could have a heart attack just saying it. Okay? So I will not mention their names. And they were terrible and ferocious. Ferocious. So Anansi thought about this and went, the three terribles. Ooh. All right, I'll do that. I'll do that. So Anansi came back down from Nyame's, I don't even know if it's a palace or just, it's a whole thing. And Anansi came back down. And the first of these three terribles was, the serpent of enormous size. And this serpent of enormous size was so ferocious, so terrible, and so enormous that just the mention of the name could kill. Okay? Horrible. And so Anansi thought about this. So Anansi knew where this serpent was. And I'm saying the serpent, when I say enormous, the serpent, when opening their mouth, before unhinging the jaws, a full-size human could walk in, set up a sofa, open it up into a sofa bed and lay down. Okay, that's how enormous the jaws were. And there's a serpent attached to that. Okay, whoa, this is a ferocious terrible. And Anansi thought about this and sought out. So Anansi grabbed a walking stick and set out to find this serpent. And when Anansi did find the serpent looked at Anansi and said, are you here for me? And Anansi said, it's you. I didn't notice you were here. And the serpent said, well, you must not have heard my reputation. And Anansi said, you must be kidding. Everybody's heard of your reputation. But they're talking about how you chew and eat and all that stuff. And I think there's a whole village in there. It's in your sections there. I know that. And so Anansi said, but what? We were talking just before I left about how big you are, how long you are. And I said that you are no longer than my walking stick. I what? How dare you? And so the serpent said, the serpent said nothing else. And Anansi said, well, then you should prove it. You should prove it. Here, why don't you lay down and measure yourself with my stick? And so the serpent slithered up beside that stick. And while they did, Anansi bound them up. And as the serpent flipped around to get Anansi again, Anansi flipped him up again and wound it up and used all of its threads and turned that serpent into a bundle and then flipped up the walking stick with that bundle of serpent and took it back up to Nyame and said, here's the first terrible. And Nyame was astounded because no one had ever done this before, had grabbed the first terrible, the serpent, and taken it. So Nyame, not too flustered, said, well, you have two more to do. And Anansi sat back down. Ooh, two more. And are you familiar with the two more? The two more. One was a hornet. A hornet with, the most incredible sting. The sting was so bad. The sting was so bad that if you got stung, your great-great-grandchildren are going to feel it. Okay? That's how bad that sting was. And they will be laid up for a little while. Okay? So that was a bad sting. It was like terrible. And it was just the one. But it lived in a whole hornet's nest. And so Anansi, and now so there's the hornet. And then there was also a very large cat. We're not sure if it was a lion, a tiger, a puma, jaguar. I don't know, it was a big, big cat. Sharp teeth. Okay, those are the last two terribles. So I won't mention their names. I will not. But Anansi set out and went, let me go for the hornet first. So Anansi went out and got some things. All came back, had a gourd, big old banana leaf, and another big old banana leaf, and now if you were to see this, you'd wonder, what is Anansi going to do with a gourd and a banana leaf? And because this hornet has a bad sting. And so Anansi poured some water out of that gourd onto their head. And then took the banana leaf and put it on top of their head, and then poured some more, and then poured more on top of the hornet's nest. And Anansi said, oh no, it's a terrible downpour. It's terrible. Oh, bad things are going to happen. There's going to be flooding. No. And Anansi just, and that hornet poked its head out. So what are you carrying on about? And Anansi said, oh, you feel the rain is coming, the rain is coming, and what you should do is you should fly in this gourd, and I'll protect you from the rain. And the hornet went, why don't I just stay in here? Oh, no. Oh, no. The rain's going to take that whole hornet's nest with it. And so the hornet then flew into the gourd. And Anansi took that other banana and he put it on top and bound it all up. That hornet was in the gourd. And Anansi took that up to Nyame. And Nyame said, ooh, 2 of 3. Ooh. We still have a deal. Go ahead. And so Anansi went back down. Now, see, Anansi's pretty crafty. Anansi thinks of a lot of things. And a lot of folks know that Anansi thinks of a lot of things. And so Anansi went to the cave of that ferocious cat and stood outside the cave and said, here, kitty. Here, kitty. And inside, as cats tend to do, that cat was like, and so Anansi went in after doing that, waking up the cat, hearing that the cat was awakened. And now this is a ferocious cat. Sometimes people would slay themselves, and as they were falling to the earth, dive inside the cat's mouth just to be, like not be chewed up and alive, right? So they would do it because it was bad. And some people had dreams of this cat and died in their sleep. Okay, so Anansi's here. And Anansi started digging a little hole in front of that cave and continued. And that cat walked to the mouth of that cave. Who's calling me? Anansi, it's me. I just want to talk a little bit about some stuff too. And that big cat said, Anansi, I've heard of you. Oh boy, I think you're gonna be tasty with a little barbecue sauce. And so, the cat was about to step into that hole that Anansi had just dug in front of the cave. And the cat looked at the hole and went, you thought I'd fall for this. And Anansi was like, I was hoping. And so the cat took one step back and bounded over that hole, only to fall into the other hole that Anansi had dug. And while that cat was in the hole, Anansi bounded all up, carried it up, and then grabbed it by the tail and took it to Nyame. Placed that cat at Nyame's feet. At which point, Nyame said, well, we had a deal. All wisdom in story is yours. And so Anansi was gifted wisdom and story and brought that back to Earth. Now, there's more to this story, but I'm gonna pause right there. Now, at the end, if you'd like to know what happened, just ask me. I'll share that with you, okay? All right, so Name now has all wisdom and story. Dun, dun, dun. To be continued. Whew. Okay. So now you know. Nyame gifted the stories to Anansi, and Anansi brought them back down here to us. And a lot of what I like to do in story is weave the stories, which is, I guess there's a little bit of Anansi flowing through me as well. Before we go further, because we're going to go further, before we go further, I have a few questions to ask of you. Because as we share story, many stories have hopes, many stories have morals. There's a lot of things that stories can carry. And it's really important when I am bringing folks together through story, when I am connecting with folks through story, it's really important what you bring to the story. And I would like to ask you a couple questions, because we are in February, correct? Is it still February? Because I lose track of time sometimes. We're in February, which is only the second month of the year, and we're not even halfway through yet. And so a lot of times at the beginning of the year, we have these resolutions or things that this year is going to be the year of the, whatever that is, the marathon, or this is the year of I'm going to cook the jambalaya, right? We have these things that we put out there as if 365 days I'm going to accomplish something amazing and wonderful and remarkable. Right? Yes? No? None of you have that. Oh, never heard of that. That's new to me. So I would, if you'll indulge me for just a moment, I'm just going to get this, my book here. It's a magical book sometimes. And by sometimes, I mean all the time. If you could, and if you would, for this year, if you could bring something into being, manifest something, create something. What I like to think of is that hope is the seed of manifestation. Ideas and imagination are the seeds of creation. And so I would like if you could pass along some seeds for this year, for 2025, or 2026 or 2027, that you would like to see grow for you. It could be personal, it could be your thing, it could be for your family, it could be for your community. Anybody have something that you would, so what would you like to see grown in this community, in your family, in your life? Could be, I would like to see $427 million in my bank account. You know, don't go small. Go ahead, go big.
Willow trees?
What's that?
Willow trees?
Willow trees. You want to grow willow trees? Okay. Where would you like these willow trees to be?
Front garden, back garden, anywhere. Around the town. Maybe a graveyard, church.
Okay.
Maybe some fruit trees, oranges.
Oranges.
Plums.
Hey, we're dreaming big, right? Okay.
Fresh air. Get rid of the carbon monoxide.
Ooh, okay. Come on, somebody else.
Joy and laughter in the streets. People playing music along the sidewalk, out in front of the library.
I would like everybody to get the medicine that they need to feel as such.
Maybe a food festival, music festival.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a food festival. Maybe a food festival. Maybe a music 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 dancing.
That bring people together.
Okay.
A victory garden movement.
And there'd always be food.
Is it a fig tree garden?
Yeah.
Victory garden.
Vic-
Victory
Victory.
garden.
Victory garden, okay.
everyone
I was
grows a
like, fig
garden.
tree garden, whoa, okay. All right.
That's what I was gonna say.
Ah.
Everybody should plant extra and feed everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
in their victory garden.
I like that.
How about housing for everyone?
Housing for everyone.
Yeah.
I love this everyone stuff here. Anyone else? Anyone else?
Gratitude.
Gratitude.
Love, and abundance.
Mm.
Or gratitude and love in abundance.
Mm-hmm. Now, there was a really powerful voice in my ear just now when you said that. And it was that gratitude and love has never not been in abundance. It's how we choose to filter when we receive. So yes, removing those filters so that everyone can receive that gratitude and love that is in abundance. Fabulous. Yes. Anyone else? One more thing.
Vision
Vision.
for the future.
Okay.
We need vision.
We're gonna let this stew right here. Just a little bit. Yes, you have something else.
Maybe more arts, craft, maybe try and go back 105,000 years ago, what we did back in the day. Go back to natural resources and natural, like growing,
Doing
like
things
farmers
like
would grow
that.
their own vegetables and everything. Fishing.
Okay. Not sure I got that one down. Back to,
Sustainable living,
5,000, 10,000 years ago.
okay.
self-resilience. Of course, we can take all the knowledge we have from today. So there isn't so much disease.
We use too many pesticides and we kill all the natural birds and insects and animals.
Fabulous. Now I'm gonna say, I feel like I got somewhere here. And when I say I feel like I got somewhere, y'all got there. Thank you. You'll see what happens. Because we just planted some seeds. So, and a lot, I'm just gonna sit with those words for a minute, because there's great power in what we imagine into being, what we create from our powerful spells that we cast with the words that we weave in community. And I want to back up. So I told you about story and how that got here. But have I told you about the beginning? Like the very beginning? Because I said I was going to go back to the beginning. Are you familiar with the beginning? Huh?
Adam and Eve?
Oh, that was the very beginning.
Dinosaurs.
Beginning. Not
Explosion,
boom.
Spark.
What's that?
the explosion.
There's an explosion, okay? What do we call that thing?
Big Bang Theory.
Big
The
Bang.
Big Bang, okay, because the reason why I asked that, and I'm just being a little tricky about it, because the reason why I asked that is that I was there. Just so you know, I was there, and it's called the Big Bang. the reason why it's called the Big Bang, I'm just going to tell you because, like I said, I was there, is because what really happened, what really, really happened, it just doesn't read well on the newspaper headlines. It's like not headline worthy. What really happened was, it was more like a big, okay? Now, try and spell that out, right? That's why it's not called the Big and it could be a little rude for some people. So, for all intents and purposes, I too will call it the Big Bang today. The Big Bang. Hello. Thank you for joining us. You just in time for the beginning. I started in the middle and went back to the beginning. So yeah. So now you're at the beginning. No, yeah. So the big that happened, right? There was a resonant sound at the very beginning. And like all sound, there's nothing that stops it. It just keeps resonating. And if I come close to you with this soft drum, you'll feel that sound. So at the very beginning, there was a, and that resonates to this day. It is the thing that causes hearts to begin beating. It is the thing that keeps our lungs working as we sleep. It is the thing that ignites imagination, this resonant sound. And when we let go of the stresses, of the anxieties that are around us and that we invite in us, we feel it. This is a beautiful thing. Because when we feel that, we can let out the connective sound that it is. Now, I had you sing with me at the beginning for a reason, because I know you have voices. Now this resonance that is within us is a sound that can come out of us. Very often it's like a hum. Some people give it an om, as others give it just a soft, gentle sound. Yet, when everyone joins in, it is the most beautiful sound that ever was. And I share this with you because I do this with elementary schoolers, with high schoolers, with middle schoolers, and it's always beautiful. From the teachers and paras who say, oh, that'll never happen there. When they tap into that, it's beautiful. And so I ask you now to tap into that sound, the most beautiful sound that ever existed and will always exist. With me now, please. Ready? There. So, do you feel that in your heart? Okay. We're going to do that again. Except we're going to do a little something different. I'm going to take this, I have a little rheostat here, a little knob, and I'm going to turn that knob. And when that knob is turned, you're going to take that most beautiful sound and make it repulsive and ugly. So repulsive and ugly that I will want to go backwards through that brick wall and out to the realtor's office there and buy a piece of property far outside of town, okay? Something like that, okay? So we're gonna do that. But then I'm gonna twist it back to beautiful, okay? It won't be long, because I really don't want to go through the brick wall. All right? So we're gonna beautiful, ugly, and back to beautiful. Are you with me? Okay, here we go. Thank you. Thank you. Whew. Okay, you all good with that. I was running. At least part of me did. I almost knocked that over. Okay. Now, I usually do that twice, but I'm only doing it once. You hurt my feelings. I'm only messing with you. No, that was great. And the reason I do this is because I gave you the prompt of how this is the most beautiful thing. And yet, from the far sides, you connected in a way that was beautiful, that is beautiful. So we have the power. We are so powerful that we can connect from faraway places, from different upbringings. We can connect, and we can make the choice to connect. Because you could have made the choice, I'm not doing that. But you did. And then, with just a twist of the knob, you can make it repulsive. You can pull us apart, tear us apart. And so often we find this, that this is the place of, I'm so powerful, look what I can do, right? And that's not power. The power is to bring it back and say, I'm willing to find harmony here. I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to add my voice gently, so gently that your heart dances. And that is our power. That is the power that we have to connect. It is very easy to turn that knob, walk out the door, and right? And a little bit less easy sometimes to go walk out that door. Thank you, we're all good here. Go ahead, have a great day. Just to change that. That is when we recognize our power. Our power, and we are immensely powerful. Now, I'm gonna stop preaching for a minute here. Tell you a little story. And it's a story about a little one named Tommy. Now, Tommy, being little, did not feel powerful, right? Because all the bigger folks, oh, Tommy, you're gonna do that, oh, Tommy, never. And Tommy, being little, was still growing into who they were, right? So Tommy decided to do the thing that they love to do, which is run. And joined in a race one day, and started this race, and ran and came in last place. Now Tommy just loved running, and was disappointed to come in last place. And talking, how do I get better at this? And they said, oh, just keep running. I've been running! And well, how do I get better? Oh, there's many ways you can train. And Tommy, I thought, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And so there was one old fella, as old fellas tend to be like this. Oh yeah, I can tell you what to do. And this one old fella said, well, you want to get stronger, you got to grow your muscles. And now you can grow your muscles by just running, or you can make it a little more troubling for yourself. And so Tommy, what do you mean troubling? Well, make it a little bit more difficult. Because as you overcome the difficulties, you'll gain. And so Tommy, well, how do I do that? So, well, pick up a rock. And Tommy picked up a rock because it added weight and started running with rocks in their hands. And Tommy was getting faster. And so Tommy put down those rocks and grabbed these dumbbells, 10-pound dumbbells, started running with them, 10-pound dumbbells. getting faster and faster. And then Tommy picked up 20-pound dumbbells. Running fast, getting strong. So Tommy decided to enter into another race. And Tommy got into that race and took off. But with those 20-pound dumbbells, Tommy came in last place. Now, Tommy was much faster, but Tommy came in last place. And so Tommy was disappointed yet again. And now, that old fella, you got better, didn't you? And Tommy said, yeah, I did, but I came in last place. Well, okay. Who are you trying to beat? I'm trying to beat them. And so, well, for any race, try to beat yourself. Run faster than you did before. And then look at where that comes in with the rest of the group. And so Tommy was like, oh, okay. And so Tommy decided to run another race, picked up those 20-pound dumbbells, and that old fella said, oh. See now, you're holding the weight, and that's giving you strength. But you're going to need power to win. And the power you need to win is the power to put down the weight. Oh, Tommy was, oh, that's some of the best coaching I've gotten yet. And so Tommy got on that line and set off. No weights. And Tommy flew. Now, did Tommy win? That's not really the point.
Yes.
That's not really the point. Tommy did win. Tommy won because Tommy was 2 seconds faster than they'd ever run before. Tommy had beaten who they were and grown into who they are. And that old fella said, now, continue to use your power to grow and only compete against yourself. Because then you can really gauge what's happening. If that person over there is 10 times faster than you and runs a little bit slower than you, they haven't beaten anyone, you haven't beaten anyone, because you have also run slower. Your power comes from knowing when to let go and fly. All right, so where are we at now? Now this is the moment. This is the moment where I grab my flute, which is sitting on a shelf in my home, and I play my flute. And I tell this wonderful flute story. So you'll just have to hold on to that for next year, okay? All right. So, the Tommy story also goes back to, it attaches to the flute story, but we're not going to get to that. The Tommy story, a lot of times we hit these walls that we set for ourselves. We set for ourselves. Whoa, no one put that there, but I had an idea that I was going to do this thing, and this didn't happen, and we encounter that. And so often when we do, we suffer. We suffer. And just recognizing that now, the really beautiful thing is I said we suffer, and there were many heads went, So we all agree that we've been to that place before, where we've this self-imposed suffering. And now, this is not a shameful thing. This is just to let us know that we're aligned in that. And very often, we're told, oh, you can get over that, or you're getting advice. Well, I would like to offer you a suggestion. A suggestion. Are there times, and with this suggestion comes a question, are there times when you would really need a hug? Right? And there's no one around. So I'm going to offer you this. You're going to take which hand is that? That's wait, they both left. Now, the right hand, and start at your right shoulder and just rub down. And you're going to take your left hand, start at your left shoulder, and just rub down. And this is your spirit bath. And you do that 3 times. Just go, it's all right. It's going to be okay. 3 times. And then the butterfly hug. Now, another really great thing when you're doing that spirit bath, allow yourself to breathe. So as you rub down here, allow that which you're holding on to just go for a moment. And then you're going to take your hands, palms facing you. You're going to take your thumbs and just lock them a little bit and place that right here so your fingertips are on your collarbone. It's a butterfly. This butterfly loves you dearly. When you have those moments of stress and strain, you just need to take a moment of just be loved by the universe. Let this butterfly come and land. And you can wiggle your fingers, or you can flutter softly, and just feel that butterfly hug, saying, you got this. You are doing all right. You are being exactly who you need to be right now. And allow yourself to feel that, and breathe it in as deeply as you need to, and let it go as far and wide as you need to. Because you're charging your breath with that love. And I know we masked before, and sometimes we're masking now, and our breaths can be, but our breaths can also be loving. Imagine just walking down the street and breathing out love. And someone who needs it walks down the street and breathes in love. Imagine walking down the street and breathing out hope. And someone walking down that street and breathing in hope. Or someone racing to that appointment and they just get surrounded by this air that is infused with positivity and healing. And before they even get to the appointment, all is well. These are stories that we are creating with simply breathing love, hope, peace, and healing with every breath that we have. Well, we are getting close to the ends of the things that I do here. And I say close is because when I say that, I usually go for another 45 minutes. I will not tonight, just so you know. Keep it in check. I would like to share with you, this is difficult for me, because I haven't shared this yet. I wrote it yesterday, and I shared it with my wife last night, and my aunt just before coming here. I will have a difficult time keeping it together in this story. And the story comes from a story that I heard as a child, but didn't fully hear the story until I was an adult. And in the past weeks, there's been a lot of hubbub in the air, especially we've got the debate at the select board, or the discussion at the select board this evening. There's a lot of stuff going on. We had a presidential election that is tumultuous, and a regime change, I use that word. And so there's a lot that I'm holding as I sit here. And I question whether I bring that in. And yet, here I am, I'm bringing it to you. And so this is the story that I wrote, and I really do feel that my grandmother needed to come through. So I got out of the car yesterday, and I was hit with a wave of emotion that is so powerful. And there are stories that we have in our families that don't get shared. And there are stories that need to be shared. Now this one, I will warn you, is a difficult story to share. I will do my best to breathe through it as I share it. Let's make America great for everyone. My grandmother, Viola Pickett Mitchell, died in 2010 at the age of 98 after living with dementia for about a decade. I have many fond memories of my grandmother. To this day, I cannot see a can of Canada Dry ginger ale without thinking of her. It was the only brand name beverage she kept in her fridge. As a youngster, my grandmother was not a storyteller, meaning she did not sit around and tell stories of her childhood or any stories of her past. Grandma Vi was a hard worker and a taskmaster, and if we acted up or acted out, she would threaten us with, "I'm gonna call somebody to put a spell on you." It would probably be safe to say that I did not get my storytelling gene from Grandma Vi. Grandma Vi made her way north as a young adult during the Great Migration. As Grandma Vi's memories fell away with her dementia, memories that she had buried started to surface. The memories that surfaced were memories that her younger, healthier self needed buried. The babies she lost during childbirth or as infants came up along with a wellspring of tears. Just let me know it's almost time. The story of my grandmother's, and it's hard for me even to share the summary without tears, and that's the story of my grandmother's best friend. When Grandma Vi was in elementary school, she had a best friend whose name I unfortunately have forgotten. They would play each day after school as elementary schoolers did back then. In Grandma Vi's story, her best friend wore this beautiful new dress that for some reason in my imagination I always saw as light blue with frilly accents around the hem and sleeves. As a youngster, I heard about this girl and her beautiful dress many times and wondered if she was somebody's grandma now. The story was always about how beautiful the dress was, how fabulous it looked on her, and how they had to play carefully not to get that dress dirty. With dementia's release of Grandma Vi's buried stories, I learned more about this little girl. I found out that she did not grow up to be someone's mother or grandmother. I found out that that was the last dress she ever wore. There were other folks who saw her wearing that beautiful dress. Some of these folks believed that a little Negro girl wearing such a beautiful dress was wrong. She was being a temptress. These same folks believed that they needed to stop such a shameful thing as a Negro elementary school girl tempting people with such a beautiful dress. All of what the town folks thought was not included in Grandma Vi's story. It comes from my trying to make sense of what happened. What was included was the mournful wails she let out every time the full memory surfaced. Grandma Vi's best friend never made it home that night after school. But Grandma Vi did not know that until she got to school the next morning. When Grandma Vi arrived at school the next morning, one of the first things she saw was her friend's face. The folks that believed that dress was too tempting decided that they needed to remove the temptation, and they did so by removing her head. Not only did they remove her head, they impaled it onto the fence post at the entrance to the school. Each day that Grandma Vi went to school, she would have to walk past the head of her best friend. One might be able to say that this story happened a long, long time ago. I am alive today, and I heard this story firsthand. So it did not happen long enough ago. Because of how blatantly this crime was displayed, I would guess that no one was held accountable for this horrific act. When I hear or read about making America great again, I wonder if they are referring to a time when this could happen. I also wonder if those who make this statement are testing the water to see if it is safe to do more than just threaten, if it is safe to do harm that they can get away with. In honor of Grandma Vi and everyone who has buried experiences of hatred, let's make America great for everyone for the first time. It is easy to hear a story like that and lose hope. This has been going on for some time. And yet, hope is the seed for what we need. There are some that say hope is not an action, and hope is the seed of action. I share this story with you not to do harm. It's a story that needs to be told. It's a story that needs to be told because when folks say, oh, there's nothing wrong with me saying that, and there is nothing wrong with you saying that. It's when you believe that you can say that and then you can act upon it. And that is important. And so, as my role as Djeli, there are some times that the stories aren't always silly and funny, but they are pointed and poignant and purposeful and also hopeful. And this story does have hope. Because Grandma Vi did live to be 98 years old. She did share those stories with me. She also, there's a little sentence in there that my aunt picked up on when I read it. She said, what was the, get somebody to put a spell on you? Is the idea of this, the witch, the voodooism. And a lot of times that is also shameful, but we are spellcasters. We are spellcasters with our words. And so we can cast the spells of wisdom, hope, of community. We can churn that rheostat into one where we are connected. We don't always have to agree, yet we can respect. And I think that's important. Thank you. So as we slide into the finale, I guess, oh, did you want to hear the other Nazi story? Did you? Because I could just leave it behind and just get on out of here.
No.
More.
More. Okay, just a temperature check. All right. All right. So, sorry, my nose is running a little bit here.
If you can.
If I can. Oh, I forget about it. Yes, pass them around, please. All right. So I will share, well, before I share that, a beautiful thing. So we did our spirit bath, we did our butterfly, and then we just did this story that's a little heavy. 3 breaths is a great changer. Not a game changer, just a changer. Mood changer, life changer, day changer. 3 breaths, full, deep breaths, and full, deep exhales. If you will with me now, let's change this room for just a moment. Now, Anansi had gotten all story and all wisdom from Nyame by defeating the 3 terribles. We'll call it defeating, but tricking, really. And Anansi, Anansi being Anansi, wanted to do something with these, with all these stories, like, no, because Anansi had all the stories, and Anansi thought, well, maybe I can open up an Etsy shop and sell these things. Maybe I could open up a store on Main Street and sell the people come in and maybe get a bar of soap and a story, you know. But Anansi until Anansi could really let that idea grow, Anansi needed somewhere secure to keep all of these stories. And so Anansi had noticed a very tall baobab tree. And Anansi thought, well, if I hide all the stories up at the top of that tree, no one can get them. Oh, because I could get up there. And so Anansi set out to hide those stories at the top of the baobab tree. And as they got to the top, the branches at the top were a little wibbly wobbly, and Anansi's balance was a little precarious. So Anansi thought, I could lose my life doing this, and decided to come back down and think it over. Now, as Anansi got back down, what Anansi didn't know was one of Anansi's many children had seen what was going on. And this child, being very young and a little bit progressive, said, Anansi, because, you know, progressive children will call their parents by name. I see what you're doing up there. It would be a whole lot easier if you put them in something and then did the thing. And Anansi, that's a good idea. What would I use this calabash. Put them inside, and so Anansi did. Grab the calabash, which is just a large gourd, and put all the stories in, and then climb back up that baobab tree with the gourd full of stories, and got to the wibbly branches again, and realized that with the gourd, it was pretty much the same as holding the story, so climbed back down, and thought about it for a minute. And that little one said, well, if you wrap up the gourd and put it on your back, you can use all your climbers. Oh, so Anansi said, that's pretty smart of you. Okay, thank you. And so Anansi did. To use the webbing to wrap up that calabash and put it on like a backpack and headed back up that tree, all the way up to the top of the baobab tree. And when Anansi had finally gotten to that spot, right at the tippity top, right with the wibbly branches having already been wibbled for 2 times prior, the wibbly branches gave way. And Anansi began to fall. And so Anansi, falling in slow motion, thought for a moment and decided this might be a parachute too, but it wasn't. And continued to fall until Anansi hit the ground. And all those stories just floated up for just a moment and seemed to stop until a gust of wind came and caught those stories, and away they went. And behind that gust of wind came another gust, and stories scattered to the 4 corners of the universe, not just of the earth, but to the universe. And those stories grew into you and you and you. And where those stories could not be contained in bodies, they became books. They became computers. They became information that is out there. And each of you is a powerful living story that is necessary and is still growing. And we can thank Anansi for setting that here and far beyond. Now, you have cast upon the world a collective story. That story is what we bring to the world, the gifts that we will manifest and see grow. Our willow trees in front gardens, in back gardens, and around the town. Fruit trees and oranges and fresh air. What we will manifest and grow is joy and laughter in the streets. People playing music in front of the library. And everybody can get the medicine they need. And we'll see food festivals and dancing, dancing, dancing. Conversations that bring people together, and victory gardens celebrating the victories of our lives. And from those gardens we will be inspired to plant extra and feed everyone. And when we feed everyone, we'll see that that inspires us to house everyone. And there will be gratitude and love in abundance. This is a vision for now. This is a vision for the future. This is art and crafts. This is back to growing and fishing. This is back 5,000, 10,000 years ago. This is sustainable living. And this is all within the knowledge we have now. This is our vision. That last piece is a reminder that when we weave our words together, when we weave our ideas together, it is poetry. And when we are in a poetic place, anything is possible. And our visions can be seen by us and others, and our visions can be lived by communities, by our state and by our nation and by the world as a whole. You are powerful. I am Djeli. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
If you have any questions for a process, for what this is, ask away. If you have any comments, something that resonated, something that, yeah.
How did Anansi know what to do with the three terribles before they had?
Oh, I can't give away
Story.
Nazi secrets. So a lot of the stories, the Nazi stories that I share, many storytellers will hear a story and they'll memorize a story and learn a story. Many of the stories I share, and especially the Nazi stories, I know the stories, and then I meditate on the stories, and I go, how would you like this story told? And part of that is that I am not a repeater, and the stories aren't like, believe it or not, I've been a performer for 40 plus years, and this isn't performance, this is something else. This is a conjuring. So I allow story to come through as it needs to come through. And there's more to that story, and if I was telling it to a younger set of kids, it would be a little bit different. So how did Anansi know what to do, how to get those terribles? Anansi is very crafty. Any other? Yes, you had it. I thought you had it. Did I see you over there?
Yeah, I was wondering, do you have a business card or anything?
A business? I don't do business. I'll give you something afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you.
I loved it when you got everybody making the sound together.
So this, a variation of that, thank you for that affirmation, comes from Kristen Carmichael Bauer, who had lived here for years, then moved down to St. John, Virgin Islands, and we went on a trip with the NEYT to St. John's, and she was working with non-singers to sing. And she did this thing, which was to create sound. So remove the idea of song and make sound. And I went, wow, that was like, it was such a beautiful and intense moment for me. And I sat with that for a while, and it was a way that once I realized that people were already singing the first song, the Djalia song, that I could add that in as something, and then the story of the connecting and disconnecting came through, so.
Are you here every Wednesday, or?
No, this is my annual thing, and well, the other part of it. So I also, do I teach storytelling? No, I inspire storytellers. So there's ways to offer prompts, and like when I asked how many of you are storytellers, just that opens up the door to tell the story, and how, as I said at the beginning. Part of my process, I didn't have a storyteller tell me that this is how you tell story, this is what you do. And so I put in my mind all these blocks and obstacles for telling story. Even though I'd been telling story since I was little. Goodness gracious, I'd do impersonations of people I saw on television. And I'd create a story for that person. And I didn't think that that was storytelling because I wasn't telling the story of John Henry or Paul Bunyan or some known story. And then as I got older, my first niece, when she was little, I cared for her for months. And one of the things I would do with her is I really was driven nuts by popular music. So I'd put on the classical music station, and I would create stories based on the way the music was going. And so she started calling it story music. And every time we got in the car, she's like, turn on the story music. And I would turn on the classical station, and she would say, do you know this story? Yeah, and so I would tell a story. And usually it was about a princess, and there was the dragons, and there's the flying, and there's wonderful magical things that happened. And just realizing, and even then, I didn't realize I was a storyteller. That was just the thing I did, was I had imagination. So from that, I went, wait, if I've been telling stories for, God, I'm almost 60 and been telling stories since I was yay big, so almost 60 years, since I could talk. I'm a storyteller, and to encourage others to tell story is just fabulous. I really love doing that. Anyone?
Have you done Robbie Williams?
What's that?
Robbie Williams?
Do I know Robbie Williams?
Have you done?
No. No, I don't do many impersonations any longer, because I'm not good at it.
Okay.
I was just talking to people and saying it would be lovely to have a regular storytelling session.
You had said this to me last year after I did it.
There are feedback forms on your seats. So the power of your words in collectively saying something like that.
Yes. Yeah, because that could happen.
Things happen.
So even though I'm here in front of you, and I've been on stages for the last 40-something years all over the world, I am reluctant to get on the stage. I'm reluctant to get up here. There's a resistance. So even though I'm a practiced extrovert, there's an introverted part of me that is like, why would I do that if there isn't a demand or a need for it? There's a need.
Stories of hope and
and every one of us has those stories. Yeah.
everything. We need stories.
And I've been going to annual conference of the National Association of Black Storytellers. And that's one of the things that I just love to do, is inspire. There's folks who show up and go, oh, I'm not really a storyteller, because they listen to somebody who's been telling story for 5 decades, and they go, oh, I can't compete. No, you're not competing with them. This is what you do. And so just to being able to offer, and I don't offer critique. I offer creative input, because I find it easier if you were to, so you're building a wall, and if you're building that wall and I'm sitting there going, this is wrong here, and the bricks are getting collapsed, and it's really hard to build that wall. Yet if I point out, hey, that's really nice job you did right there, it's easy to replicate that. And do it again. And it may feel repetitive, but from that repetition, there's ease that comes. And when you get to ease, the other things happen. And the simplest story is, the simplest story I've ever told. Hi, I'm Djeli. Right? The first thing, what's the conflict? Who is this person? Right? And how do we resolve that? I'm Djeli. Right? Resolved. How simple a story is that? And we tell it every time we go into a gathering, anytime we enter a new space. And very often, the story that is told is, hi, right? As opposed to, hi, I'm here. The person you've been waiting for. Whew, that felt weird. Right? Being real.
I'd like to add protection to our vision.
Protection. Added. Anyone else have something, question or comment or?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It was wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the affirmation.
Thank you, dear Djeli. Djeli's a friend of mine from other parts of my life, and we absolutely adore
Friend,
Djeli.
we're family.
Yes.
We are family.
Thank you, Djeli, for
You're
bringing
welcome.
yourself in your full self, along with your ancestors who accompanied you today, especially your grandmother. The story was powerful and meaningful and very poignant in these times. And for Black History Month, we thank you for that, for sharing that, because that was very personal and entrusting us with that story.
Yeah.
So thank you. And again, like we said, there are feedback forms. If you'd like Djeli back, please say so.
Yeah, say so.
You know, because we are responsive to what our patrons want. You know. So.
I am available to be back. And I have stories galore.
Every
What's that?
Every
Wednesday.
And when you said you didn't have a flute, I was expecting Star to pull one out.
Oh, yeah.
Because you know, Star makes magic
Yeah.
here. So.
No, I have my shakuhachi flute, and there's a whole section of that which is about the shakuhachi flute, which is something I've been playing for almost 30 years now. And it's a practice flute. It was gifted to me. My first foray outside of the country was to Japan. And when I arrived in Japan, I didn't speak a lick of the language, and I felt at home. I felt like the earth was calling me there, and I would navigate to different places. I learned to speak the language in 2 months. Now, I spoke like a kindergartner, but I could go anywhere I wanted to go after 2 months of being in the country. No, not now. I don't speak it now.
You understood that, though.
Yeah, no, I don't speak it now. Konnichiwa. So a friend of mine gifted me the shakuhachi flute, and I was like, wow. And I started playing, it's a practice flute. Many of the folks in the temples, some of the monks in the monasteries will play these flutes as a meditative tool. And the flute is only played by, it's very similar to telling a story. It's only played by breathing into it. It's not a flute you blow into. If you blow into it, it's like the Big Bang, only worse. And so you breathe into it. And as I breathed into this flute, it shared with me stories. And one of those stories was the story of Yasuke. And I thought, wow, well, and it helped me to understand that connection that I felt to Japan when I first got there. Are you familiar with Yasuke? Yasuke was the first foreign-born samurai. And what's that? And they were, and they served under Daimyo Nobunaga, who was the ruler that they were serving under, the chief, not, you know, there was whole levels of, and they were African-born. So this history of this black African being the first samurai, foreign-born samurai in Japan, and I don't know if there's a lineage between me and Yasuke, and yet there is, because of that connection to the earth, and now through the breath in that flute. And so when I bring that flute in, it's about how some of these connections get severed and recreated through our breath.
Wow.
I think there was like a book or movie, The Last Samurai, I think Tom Cruise or something. The Last Samurai.
Could you say that again?
Which
What you
part?
just said
No, I can't.
about
Nothing is repeatable. You have to watch the video. Yeah, because it's part of the channel. And and believe it or not, this is like, so this is, if you will, the freakiness of what I do. This is real. These are real. Part of what I am doing is channeling the stories. And so it's not like, oh, I'm going to do this because I know that this is going to get the punchline, or I know that this is going to happen here. I have a voice. That's
What
sharing.
I heard you say
Please.
is that the lineage through the flute came from the breath.
That sounds great. Can I quote you on that? The lineage. Wow, wow, thank you. I'm going to quote that. That was good. I love that. I wish I'd said it. Thank you. Yeah, and just that idea, and it's something I also love with the flute, especially when I play in schools with the younger kids, and the teacher like, oh, I'll never sit quietly for this, is as soon as the flute plays, silence. It's amazing. And usually the teachers will come up to me afterwards, how did you do that? What did you do? What's in the air? The sound.
It's like the snake in the basket.
Yeah, exactly. Just like that. It's magical.
The stories are in the air.
The stories are in the air. Yeah, a dear friend of mine, Peter Gould, who you may have known, he's a legend around here, mentor of mine. We have had this discussion for a long time, is that all idea and all story is floating right here. And all we have to do is dare to reach up and pull down the stories. And then the courage to speak them out or to let them be. All right, like I said, I'll keep going if you. Thank you very much.